Hello and welcome to another Trash Talk Podcast. I'm host Jim Sergej. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
I'm doing fine myself, and today we're talking about one of my favorite things in the world, Doctor Who. Specifically, we're talking about the flexibility of Doctor Who, and I guess how that led to its longevity. Because Doctor Who, as you might well know, is a very flexible program, and let's talk about that.
It's also been running for a whole long time.
Well, it initially ran for 26 years, and then it didn't run for a while. They made a movie, and then eventually when it came back, it has now been running for 18 years.
That's a lot of years.
Yes, that makes a grand total of about 44 years, but the program from its inception to now has existed in total for 60 years, and there has been continuous Doctor Who content since 1963, even during the so-called wilderness years, because obviously there have been things outside of TV. There have been audio adventures. I think those started in the 90s, though. There have been novels. Those definitely started earlier. I don't know if they started quite as early as the end of the show, but there has definitely been stuff. I don't have any of the ongoing series.
I knew that there was stuff outside. I didn't know that, even while the show was not airing, that there was still stuff being produced outside of TV.
I mean, that was the main impetus of why they started making them, right? Because there was no other content. Okay, so the VNAs, the Virgin New Adventures, started in 1991, which is 2 years after the show ended, to be fair. Actually, it's June 91, let's see. When was season 26 ended in 6th of December. So it's actually only a year and a half between the end of the show and the first Virgin novel. Virgin being the publisher. So yeah, 1990. Let's see, 1990 releases. Well, Doctor Who magazine was going on since the 70s. I believe it was the 70s. When was the first CWM coming out? Now I'm just basically Googling Doctor Who history, which does not really go. Yeah, barely, but 1979. So yeah, that was going on monthly, or it might have already been. I don't know. Was it Doctor Who Monthly back then, or was it already Doctor Who Magazine? It's already Doctor Who Magazine, so it might have been every 4 weeks. So okay, so there was Doctor Who Magazine has existed for a while now. It's at almost 600 issues at this point. It started as Doctor Who Weekly for about a year, then it became Doctor Who Monthly, and then it became Doctor Who Magazine. I think it was also actually the Doctor Who magazine for a while, but at this point, that's just semantics. And Doctor Who magazine has, I believe, also been monthly for a while, and now it's every 4 weeks, which is not the same thing because that means 13 issues a year rather than 12. But does also make for a more predictable pattern, because the monthly ones weren't necessarily always on the same date. Obviously, they were always on the same weekday, but also not always on this, it's not that it was always the first this weekday of a week, so it was a really weird pattern. Doesn't matter. The Happiness Patrol was first published. Then I was about to say it's a novelization. It's a TV story. Space Pirates novelization. There was an Absalom Dark Dalek killer graphic novel in 1990. Okay, there's a reprinted stories from. Wait, are they? Or are they not? I think they're reprinted from Doctor Who magazine. Remembrance of the Daleks, that's another novelization. Mission to Magnus, that was a novelization. I didn't know that one. Ghostlight. Okay, so 1990 didn't have a lot of original Doctor Who content going on, to be fair. Mostly adaptation, novelizations, and Doctor Who magazine. But then again, 91 is when the New Adventures start, and also, apparently, An Unearthly Child was published in Germany in 1990. I'm assuming they mean, when they say published, I'm assuming they mean the adaptation, the novelization, not the actual TV story. That would be kind of weird. Um,
I have no clue.
I managed to start this topic off topic, which is wild. All right.
I mean, I kind of expected that with Doctor Who, because like there isn't really an off topic here, especially when the topic idea is so broad.
The topic is
I mean,
Doctor Who's
it
broad, and we
literally
went
is the
broad with it.
flexibility of Doctor Who. Yeah.
Yeah.
See how flexible it is?
Yeah, we can talk about anything. I mean, to be fair, I could probably talk about hours about Doctor Who without actually ever talking about the contents, but this is supposed to be about the contents. So, although I guess we could talk about format. I mean, it used to be in black and white during the first and second Doctor era, then it was in color. And I think in like 2006 or 7, they even switched it from being in 4x3 to being 16:9. I'm pretty sure the first season or two of the Revival were actually still in 4x3, which is kind of funny in retrospect. I mean, yeah, they've changed run times. You know, it used to be 25-minute episodes for most of the original run. I think there was a brief period where it was 50. And then in the Revival it was 45.
Episodes?
No, 50 minutes per
season.
episode.
Oh, minutes per episode. Okay.
In Revival it was mostly 45, except for sometimes the specials would usually be longer. But then at some point they're 50. So yeah, it was 13 episodes a season in the Revival, then it was 12, then it was 10, then it's 8, which is not a trend I like, but you know, more content is better. But also we're getting spin-offs again, so you know, that's gonna compensate for that hopefully.
Also, I disagree with more content is better.
Well, you're wrong.
I don't think that's always better.
What? I mean, I said, well, you're wrong, but I mean, maybe it's not necessarily strictly speaking better.
Like more good content is better.
Yes, obviously. If I want more content, I don't want it at the expense of quality. That is, I guess, something that is worth saying. But yeah, I mean, come on. It's the Power of the Doctor was last year, and then it took over a year from I think it might have been early fall or late summer last year to November this year when the first new episode came out. That's too long. There's only 4 episodes this year.
That is long. What?
Yeah, because it's specials, right? So there's the 60th anniversary special, which is actually 3 specials, and they all came out after the anniversary, technically. And then there's the Christmas special. And then
I guess that means I have less to catch up to.
I mean, yes, but also you haven't even seen Time's Children yet, have you? The Time's Child? Whatever that episode was called. So, which is season 12.
I don't know.
Right? So you still have to watch season 13. The last couple episodes of season 12, and obviously then the specials. Of which only 2 are out so far. Well, as this episode airs, the 3rd special is also airing. So, you know. Okay. Right, flexibility of Doctor Who. We should maybe talk about the actual like content of the show rather than just the sort of around it stuff.
Sure. I assume you meant like regenerations and just like having a TARDIS to like warp to any place and setting and genre that you want. And then like after the episode or at the end of the episode just like warp back to wherever.
That is pretty much precisely the point, right? There's sort of the regeneration is interesting because it is kind of needed for the show to run this long. It has been done that characters just have been recast. That's something that you can theoretically do, but doing it this much would be tricky, right? Like most characters are recast like once or twice, not like 13 times, only counting the numbered versions. And also only counting each numbered version once, despite the fact that some of them have been played by multiple actors.
Oh no.
I mean, the first Doctor has been played on TV by at least 3 different actors. So, it's also always the first one that gets recast because they keep wanting to use them. But yeah, no, the regeneration is interesting because it is not strictly necessary, but it does have a good in-universe explanation for why they recast the character, and doubles as also slightly changing the format because every Doctor has a different personality, and so there is quite a difference sometimes from one Doctor to the next in what the character's personality is, which does also change up the stories a little bit.
Yeah.
Which is probably one of the, to a degree, underappreciated elements, I would say, because people always talk about different showrunners and like, oh, they changed the show and stuff like that. But I feel like you don't really hear a lot about how the regeneration itself also benefits that. I mean, obviously, it's all kind of talking about the same thing, right? I mean, when Moffat came in, the story changed, but also the Doctor changed, so that sort of has an universe explanation as well. So, Also, it's kind of weird that in New Who, every time a new showrunner comes in, you get a new Doctor and a new set of companions, right? That's a bit weird.
I didn't know that. Yeah, that. I mean, I guess it's easier to start off with like a fresh slate.
Yeah.
For
I mean, it has been said that the first Matt Smith episode is a really good starting point. But you don't have to watch the Russell T Davies stuff. I mean, you should, because it's the best part of the show. But you can just start with the 11th Doctor, or you could also start with the 13th Doctor, right? Because those are like very natural starting points. There's a new showrunner, there's a new Doctor, there are new companions. I mean, there's even that thing where during the Russell T Davies era, there were a lot of things that were mentioned a lot that didn't come up as much later, right? The Shadow Proclamation, Torchwood. I mean, Unit is fairly present in most eras, but like there are a couple things that just keep showing up.
Unit?
You know Unit.
I mean, probably. I kind of put a face to it.
They're like the military organization that sometimes shows up. They're like Torchwood, but more professional.
Maybe.
Oh, come on.
Wait.
They were like every era. They're like a cornerstone of the universe.
Yeah, no.
Fake fan.
I don't remember that.
I mean, no, seriously, they were.
I mean, if that wasn't
if that
wasn't obvious enough by me not having watched like however many episodes that has been released in the past years.
Unit were heavily involved in the Battle of Canary Wharf in the season 2 finale, series 2 finale. They were pretty central to the Zygon Invasion, Zygon Aversion. I mean, generally, during the 11th Doctor era, there were definitely a lot of there were multiple unit stories with Osgood, right? The unit scientist was fairly prominent. Kate Stewart, of course, the boss unit. The 10th Doctor, again, right, encountered unit a couple times for sure. Martha used to work for them for a while.
No. Am I being outed as a complete Doctor Who noob or something?
I mean, you've seen a bunch of episodes that they were in, is the thing, right? Because they were in every... Well, I was going to say they were in every season. That's probably not true. That's definitely not true. They were definitely not in season 11. But
it's been a long time, though, since I've seen all of that.
It's funny to me that you don't remember Unit because they are very central to like a lot of stories. I guess I haven't seen Flux, which is their most recent appearance, but their most... No, actually, the Starbeast is their most recent appearance, but
I assume they were like involved with the whole like Stonehenge thing that went on at one point, right? Okay.
Now I'm confused.
I don't know. What wasn't there like an episode or like a pair of episodes where there was like something under Stonehenge or something?
Yeah, actually, I think there was an episode where that was about Stonehenge, but I don't think they were involved with that, were they?
I don't
Didn't it
remember.
mostly take place in the past?
Man. What?
The Stonehenge thing. Let's see, Stonehenge.
I don't know.
First mention of timeline, great. No. Series 5 of the Pandorica opens.
Oh no, wait, what was that?
The Big Bang? The Life of the Land. No, that's not it. That's the monk episode. The Big Bang
Yeah, no.
is... I don't actually...
Uh,
I don't know what you're talking about. Anyways. So there are those things that kind of keep showing up, right? Like, during the during the Rusty Davis era again, right? Torchwood keeps showing up. The Shadow Proclamation is mentioned a lot, even though they only show up once, I think, actually. During the Moffat era, you have River Song keeps showing up. Mostly in the 11th Doctor's era, to be fair. 12th Doctor only met her once, I believe. The rest is of River Song. You have what else did Moffat have that was recurring? I mean, yeah, I don't know. I mean, he has a lot of recurring things for like a single season, right? Like the Tears in Time.
Yep.
There was more, but yeah, no. So, and I guess River is a companion, which makes her as a recurring element really just. And it's kind of like saying Captain Jack kept appearing in the RTD era, which is true, but yeah, but I mean, every showrunner kind of has their own things that they keep using more or less, right? And sometimes you have interesting things where, like, you notice that, like, oh, like, right, like the unit characters as well, right? Like, again, Osgood is a recurring character in the Stephen Moffat era, whereas, she didn't exist before, and she evidently doesn't exist after, because they have a different scientific advisor in I was gonna say the Wobbly Otter, the Star Beast. And so every showrunner kind of has their own spin, right? Like their own way of writing Doctor Who. I mean, they're not sole writers, but they are the main writers, and they do get final say. They have their own elements that they keep reusing, and so it does feel a bit different under every showrunner, and that's comparatively speaking the mild stuff, right? In the Third Doctor's era, that started off with the Doctor being stranded on Earth. And he hung around with, actually, Unit. And so, like, that's just a whole part of the show, where he's just having adventures on Earth in the present day. Well, technically, they were meant to be set in the 80s, but they were released during the 70s, but then everyone forgot it, and whenever they reference later, characters will claim that those things happened in the 70s, which is a huge problem to Doctor Who continuity, but continuity is not really Doctor Who's strong suit anyways, which in some ways helps it, because if you wanted to strictly adhere to like 60 years worth of canon, that might also be difficult, so contradicting yourself every now and again is not the worst thing in the world.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I was going to use the example, right, in terms of like flexibility beyond just regeneration. If you just look at the very first season of Doctor Who, now, I know you haven't seen it, but
in like the first few episodes.
So, the very first serial, the very first episode is An Unearthly Child, right, which is mostly just introduction to the show. It has a bit of a mystery thing going on. I don't think you should judge anything based on that, because it is basically a pilot. I mean, it literally was a pilot, although they did refilm it, so it's not... So, then they end up in the Stone Age. And they hang out with cavemen for a while. I didn't particularly like that story, but it's one thing. And then in the next story, they land on Skaro and they find the Daleks. Right, so you have this story set in the past. You have a more traditional sci-fi story, and then the next one is the Edge of Destruction, which is set entirely within the TARDIS, and there may or may not be some entity in there, and it's just this whole it sounds more like a psychological thing, and it's kind of wild.
Yeah.
And then the next story after that is, I think it's the Aztecs, right? Where, again, right, like, they go to the past. And that's the case of Marinus, where they have to, like, location hop during the episode. I mean, otherwise it's still just a fairly standard sci-fi story, but it's more episodic in a way, which is interesting. And then, oh no, wait, no, it's not the Aztecs. It's Marco Polo would have been the one that was between the Aztecs, between the Keys of Marinus and the Daleks. But that doesn't really matter. The point is, there's a mix of historical and sci-fi stories, which is inherently like two different types. And then you have things like the Edge of Destruction in between there, that are like kind of neither, but also are like fairly high concept. I just watched The Space Museum, which is a season 2 serial, where it has a really cool concept. I mean, the story itself is actually not that good, but the first episode's really good. And they land on this planet, but something is a bit off, right? And they find out that they haven't fully materialized yet, and they're sort of ghosts, time ghosts, if you will. And they are not seen or heard, they can't interact with objects, and also they can't hear anything, they can only see things, which is odd, but okay, I'll go with it. And then they find that they themselves are exhibits in the museum.
Oh.
And then Vicky and the Doctor figure out that actually what happened is that, effectively that, what was it, they jumped a time dimension or something? They desync from time a little bit, and what they're seeing in the museum is actually the future! And so then at some point they do materialize it, at the end of the episode as a matter of fact, and now they have to figure out how to avoid ending up captured in the museum. Which is a really cool concept that they only really pay lip service to. But it's a really cool idea! And it's like a very like high concept sci-fi thing that is like different from your regular like bug-eyed aliens, right? It's not the Web Planet or the Daleks. And so there is really a lot of variety. I did say start with season 1 and then I mentioned season 2 episode, but like even in the first 3 stories, the first production block, the first 13 episodes, like there's already like 3 very different stories in there. And I also can't hear you anymore. Oh, never mind. Okay, you just were too quiet apparently.
Okay. Yep.
Sensitivity cut off
Happens.
Discord. Yeah, no, but like, the Doctor is very flexible. Do you want to say anything about what I just said or anything else?
I don't know what to say. Like, I fully agree with that.
I mean, we could use Nuhu examples. Maybe you could talk to that a bit more. But, right, you have your regular sci-fi adventures, you have your sci-fi historicals, which, the historical stories in the modern series, and I actually most of the classic series, just not the first Doctor's era, usually have a sci-fi element in them, but they still are, to some degree, about the historical setting. More or less, I mean, you have stories where it's more about the time period, you have stories where it's more about historical figures. You have, I mean, under Chris Chibnall, you had a lot of stories that were actually like trying to teach again in the style of the original show, where like it tries to teach you something about the time period, right? Like Rosa, teaching the story about Rosa Parks, which I thought was fairly well known, but I don't know, maybe not in Britain. And then Demons of the Punjab, right? Dealing with the partition of India, which I hadn't heard of before. I mean, I suppose I did maybe like in passing here that India used to be one country, like India, Bangladesh, and Pakistan used to be one country, but like under British rule, but like, I didn't know any of the details. So, those are like almost more educational in some sense about the history, while also mixing in some aliens, because these days I guess you can't go without them, which, fair enough, I always prefer the alien stuff anyways. Then you also have episodes like Midnight, right, which is almost like a horror episode. I mean, Blink. You remember Blink, right?
Blink. That is a fantastic episode.
And it's, in a sense, a horror episode, but it's also really playing with the time travel aspect of it, which the show does way too rarely. Like, the TARDIS is usually just a device to get from A to B. And I feel like they very rarely use time travel in an interesting way as part of the plot. Which, again, part of why the Space Museum is interesting. But, yeah, right, Blink is not, like, a typical sci-fi story. It's not a historical story. It's not set on the alien planet. I mean, aliens invading the present day also happens occasionally in Doctor Who, but even that is not really comparable, right? This is not the Slitheen or the Jadoon just showing up in the present day and messing shit up. It's different.
It's very different. I would even argue that it probably works as a standalone. Like, if you haven't seen any Doctor Who at all, just knowing, hey, Doctor, like, time travel, TARDIS, whatever, exists as a concept, and then just watching this episode, I think that works.
I don't even think you need to know a lot about that. I mean, I suppose he does use the TARDIS at one point, but having the Doctor be this mysterious character, I think Blink would work as an introduction to the Doctor Who mythos. I mean, I guess Martha isn't introduced at all, which is a bit weird for her being like the young companion, if you were to use it as a starting point. But the problem is I would never recommend, I don't know, it feels hard to me to recommend, like, oh, if you want to get into Doctor Who, start with Blink.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that gives you the wrong impression, right? Like, Rose is a good starting point. It's not even necessarily a great episode, but I feel like if you can get down with Rose, the first episode of the new show, not the character, although also the character, but like then you'll probably be down with Doctor Who, right? Like the Autons invade, and there's a weird plastic Mickey, and someone gets eaten by a garbage can, right? Like, if that's your jam, like the campy sci-fi thing, like that is sort of peak Doctor Who in a way. Although not necessarily, again, right? It's flexible. Heaven Sent, right? Another great example of the 12th Doctor in the Confession Dial, right? Where he like keeps being looped. It's a time loop story. Hey, again, right? One is playing fun stuff with time. It's not really a time loop story. It's technically, well, I mean, from his perspective, it sort of is, but it also doesn't actually play with time in any literal sense. Which is actually,
it's not a time, like it's not a loop story.
Well, no, but
it is, yeah. Okay, no.
It is, right? The story loops. But it's also not a time loop in the traditional sense, which is, in some ways, really cool, right? Because time loop seems like an obvious thing to do with your time travel show. And yet they did it without it involving time travel. Also, Stephen Moffat wrote some of the best Doctor Who stories. Right? He wrote Heaven Sent, he wrote Blink, he wrote The Empty Child. I don't think he's very good as a show. Well, he's not as good as Russell Davies as a showrunner, but he's really good for like writing individual episodes. Not all of his episodes land, but a lot of them do. Dude, The Empty Child also almost more of a horror story to a degree, especially a zombie story.
Which one was that?
Are you my mommy?
Oh, is it? Oh, yes. Yes, I remember that episode. That's a good one.
Probably the best. Well, I mean, both parts together, probably the best story from season 1. Almost certainly the best story from season 1. I mean, okay, Dalek's actually also really good.
That was from the first season?
I'm pretty sure.
Oh, yeah.
Because the Doctor dances,
yeah,
right?
It was.
That's the 9th Doctor, and he's talking about how he invented banana split or something. Because it's the 9th Doctor who always carries a banana with him, although I think that only shows up in the one story, but...
I don't know. So, but yes, that was the first season.
Actually one of the easiest one for me to remember if a story is set in that particular season, because if Christopher Eccleston was the Doctor, it's season 1, or series 1, technically, but... So yeah.
Well, I don't remember who the Doctor was at that time, but I do remember the episode.
Weirdly enough, I've had a problem recently where I noticed that sometimes I didn't know, especially for like the 10th Doctor era, which season it was, despite the fact that he has a different companion every season. Like, I can tell you which Doctor it was, but not which companion, despite the fact that they're also, like, all three of them are very different.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how that happened. There were definitely a couple stories where I was like, which companion was that with? Sometimes takes a minute.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, right, you have these more horror type stories, you have like the more traditional sci-fi stories, you have stories that are more about history, but like sci-fi elements are secondary. You have your strict historical stories in the early seasons of the original show. You have your like very high concept sci-fi stories, like again, right, your I would say Blink falls a little bit under that, but it's more of a horror story. But yeah, no, the Space Museum with the time loop, with the time not time loop, time loop was Heaven Sent. Although Heaven Sent is actually in a weird way kind of a category of itself. It's more of a character piece more than anything else about the 12th Doctor processing the death of Clara, which happened the episode prior. So yeah, I kind of really enjoyed Face the Raven as the ending for Clara's story. Heaven Sent was really good, and then Hellbent comes around and undermines all of it, which is really weird. I don't like that it revived Clara. That's just stupid.
I will have to look that up because I don't remember.
Yeah, not really the point. But yeah, no, the Doctor takes on different companions. That's also another aspect that makes it work, because obviously, while you could technically have had Susan and Ian to this day, well, I mean, I guess Carol Ford left because she didn't want to play the role anymore, so I guess you couldn't have had her. I don't know why William Russell left. But I mean, both of them are still around. I don't know if William Russell would necessarily be down to play Ian on a regular basis. He is... I looked this up when we talked about Sonic for the first time for some reason. Well, when we discussed the topic before ending it. William Russell is like, what, 99?
I think, yeah.
William Russell, English actor, of course. Yes, 19th of November, 1924. Which also means that the first episode of Doctor Who aired 4 days after his birthday. Which is an interesting tidbit that doesn't mean anything, but yeah. But yeah, no, he is 99 years old. It's actually kind of a shame that he wasn't born a year earlier and 4 days later, because then he... No, okay, that's silly. No, but then he would have been exactly 40 on like the day of the first episode. I mean, I guess they shouldn't have necessarily had to film on his birthday, but you know what I mean. I mean, the year in and of itself would have been kind of cool, because then the like anniversaries of Doctor Who would always align. Like the round numbers would always be the ones for his birthday as well, which they aren't quite. Man turns 100 next year. Not a lot of people do that. Okay, I'm getting off topic again. Do you have anything you want to add to this topic, or do you want to move on?
I do have one thing to add to something you said very early on. That, like, about, like, almost needing regeneration to, like, switch characters without, like, while having, like, an in-world explanation for that. Why suddenly the actor switches. Because like nowadays you can just like have a fully CGI person in your TV show that never changes.
Yeah, not on the BBC budget.
fair, but well, technology does improve over time.
I mean, yeah, also they have a distribution deal with Disney that gives them a lot of money, and Doctor Who actually has a higher budget than ever. But historically, Doctor Who, not exactly known for its high budget. Ooh, I believe, I think I remember this correctly. Do you want to guess what the budget was per episode during the first season, as in 1963?
Like their time of money or now?
I do not have the inflation-adjusted money. I just the original.
Okay. I don't know, maybe like $400.
2,300, but I think it was the per episode budget, and they had a £500 budget for the TARDIS, for the TARDIS interior set. Well, because they needed every episode, right? So they had a separate budget to just build the set because they were going to reuse it every episode anyways, or at least every serial was going to show it like once or twice. But yeah, I mean, I think it was 2,300. Let's see, 2,300. I kind of want to see that now. Pounds. Wait. I just pound inflation calculator. Bank of England. Oh, now that works. Do we not? Oh, we don't have data for. Okay. Anyways, 1963. I said 2300, which would. Is that not how that works? Did I use this wrong? Let's see. Let's try that again. 1963. Jesus. Drop downs. 2,300. Show amount. Oh yeah. I hit enter and it just reloaded the page. Apparently you have to actually click the show amount button, which as of October 2023, because I guess that's the new data that we have, would be about £40,000. Which is quite a bit of money, but not a lot of budget for like a TV show.
Yep.
And they didn't have CGI back then, or any kind of computer editing. They were cutting tape by hand.
That is a lot.
And also, they weren't really doing multiple takes anyway, so yeah.
Yeah, and you mentioned a £500 budget for the TARDIS.
Yeah, which will be about like 8,000, 9,000 pounds today.
It's like 10,500.
Huh. I'm not as good at math as I thought I was.
According to this website that I'm using right now.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
No clue how accurate that is.
Because I said it was that 2.3 was barely 40, and then 0.5 would not be more than 10. Like that just like.
Okay.
The site using is.
You used Bank of England, right?
Yep.
1963 to October 23. All right. 500 show amount. Okay. You have to enable JavaScript on this website.
I mean, fair enough.
Makes sense. Cookies. Try again.
I mean, the whole point was that.
Oh yeah, 8.7.
Yeah, because math, right? Because
fine.
Inflation is. I was going to say linear. That's not at all true. It's exponential, but like the form, like it's one of those things where if you multiply x, then f of x is multiplied by the same amount. I guess that's the thing, right? The output of the inflation calculation is linear to is proportional to its input. Because it's basically just multiplying it by a number.
Yeah.
Even if the actual like compound inflation is technically exponential if you go like year by year, but if you go just number 1963 to number now, that's proportional, which also makes it linear. That's what I was. So it is linear. I was right. My first instinct was correct. It's way too late. It is a linear function. From that viewpoint. What's your fact of the week?
Right. So, what we did right now was a lot of talking. And birds also can talk. Some of them.
Yes.
Yeah. And I recently learned that apparently corvids, or at least some of them, can do that too.
Yeah.
Better known as crows.
Or ravens.
Ravens. Yep.
Also,
including also other species.
Fun fact that that I think I have mentioned before, right? There is no scientific distinction between crows and ravens. There's like no clear delineation.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's all just colloquialism. Which ones are crows and which ones are ravens?
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I didn't know those could mimic speech. Now my D&D character makes a lot more sense.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, I think they're not as good at it as parrots are in terms of like how close they get it, but they can mimic speech. Yes.
Can do some really good. They can do it really well.
Okay,
I will send you a video later.
Okay, fair enough.
Like I am actually impressed.
But yeah, I had heard of that in passing. Now that, I guess, unless you have anything else to say, brings us to my fact of the week, and that is about universities. So I feel like when it comes to like things being old, Oxford University is often used as a comparison, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh yeah, like this, like, oh yeah, the Aztec Empire was founded like hundreds of years after Oxford was founded.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, depending on how you look at it, is over 300 years. Well, I found a Wikipedia page that lists a list of oldest universities in continuous operation, right? So those are universities that still exist, because it kind of gets difficult. I've looked at the list of historical universities, but it kind of gets difficult to like pin down what is a university, right? Like if you go back too far. And so looking at the ones that still exist to this day, it makes it a lot easier.
Yeah.
Oxford isn't the oldest.
Oh.
They're the second oldest. The University of Bologna actually predates it by, well, a bit.
How much is that bit?
Well, it's complicated because historical records aren't the clearest. Long story short, 1088 is often considered to be the date at which the teaching in Bologna began, and 1096 is the earliest date that we know that teaching in Oxford happened. Now, this list also has a categorization by which it defines what it qualifies as a university, because a lot of them were like more just like, oh, there were some lectures held there before it was like a formal university. And so, as university, as per this Wikipedia list, Bologna qualifies in around the 1180s, 1190s, which is about 100 years after there was the first when teaching started. But the University of Oxford, they have somewhere between 1200 and 1214 as when they would qualify as a university by their standards. So, depending on which of those two definitions you look at, and depending on how accurate those numbers are, basically somewhere between 10 and 20 or so years, between 10 and 30 maybe years between those. So not a huge amount, but by both measures, to the best of our available data, Bologna would be first. Out of those that still exist.
That's pretty cool.
I just thought it was
know that.
interesting. I was looking at some of the like timeline things with like with like some of those comparisons with Oxford. I was like, none of those are like that exciting. And then I saw that Oxford wasn't even all of a sudden like. I feel like people always bring up Oxford, and obviously, right, there's a bias here because I consume a lot of English-speaking content, and also the UK and the US have an outsized impact on the world, and so obviously, Oxford is going to be like some sort of standard, right? The Italians. I was gonna say the Italians weren't that impactful. Yeah, I mean, it depends on which point in history we look at, right? But the British Empire, of course, very impactful, and also still to this day, right? Like with media, Britain and the US are impactful. And in English-speaking countries, of course, Oxford is more talked about because it's an English-speaking university.
Yeah.
Which brings us to this week's Squirtle. Our first word is laser. Our second word is tonic. For those that have not seen us do this before...
We already had a... Yeah, continue. I didn't want to interrupt.
For those that haven't seen us do this before, these are words that we determined with a program to be the best starting words, although it turns out that we're probably wrong.
We're very likely wrong, yeah.
Our methodology relied on a word list that isn't actually the one that is used here. But also we relied on letter frequency as a barometer for the words. And so...
it's not based on entropy or anything.
Yeah, so that might... Well, I mean, I did pick laser over whatever we first used because I didn't like the... I think it was the A or the E being... Oh, yeah, Earls, right, was the one we used at first. And I didn't like the E being in the corner. So there was a little bit of optimization, but yeah, that's how we came up with those. What were you going to say?
That we already hit an I.
Yes, we did already an I. And we know that the column that the I resides within also needs an A, an N, and a C.
And it should not contain a T or an O.
Well, no O's in general, but yeah. I mean, the negative information at this stage is probably not quite as useful. But yeah, no, I mean, you would think that there aren't a lot of words that contain those four letters, with the I being in a fixed position and the A, N, and C being a little restricted in which positions they can appear in. Although there are good odds that this is either the N or the A. But the C can't be in last or in second. I must say, I'm not immediately coming up with a clever solution to this. Ooh, that's not good. Okay, so the C would have to be either here or in the beginning.
Yeah.
I'm just intuitively leaning towards the beginning.
Yeah, I'm trying to brute force that, assuming that the A is in second and N by necessity in last, but that doesn't seem to be... Oh, no, wait, cabin. That could work.
And we have a possible solution. I was thinking of that exact same word order, although, of course, N in second is theoretically possible, but then C wouldn't be in first, which means that C would be in third, which would maybe work. Wait, no, C and N, no, this is probably it. And since there are probably not a lot of other words besides cabin, the B is actually a pretty good guess there as well.
Cabin, is that an English word?
I don't think so.
I can't think of what the English word would be.
Yeah, I don't think it... I think cabin is...
And rule of thumb is just like replace K's with C's.
Yeah. We also know that the first row needs an S and an A, and we already placed a C there, but that's probably not good enough. 3 letters is probably not good enough to give us something. And none of the other ones really have a lot more. I mean, the first row also needs an S and an A, but like, what are they going to do with that? Which I guess means that we should just figure out something to guess. Although, it is interesting that the third row and column in S, so whatever we guess should probably contain an S. And we do want to double check the cabin, we might also want to be there, which if we do, actually already limits us quite a bit with where we would likely put the S. Because SB I don't think works. SP is fairly common, but I don't think SB works. So the S would have to be in one of the last three spots. I mean, center I guess would make sense. That's where the two hints intersect. Absent. That's too long. That's 6 letters.
Abyss,
also no N's.
But yeah.
What did you say?
I don't think Abyss. That fits the criteria, but probably not a word we want to use.
Double S
gives us very little
Y in
information.
The center, yeah, that's.
Yeah.
I liked the idea of the word starting with ABS. That's obviously a stretch, because absolute and whatever the other one was that I just said, where the other words that come up. Well, absent also, but it's also too long.
Yeah.
There are definitely ABS words, and obviously the first row and first column both need an A. So that would be another place that has the A. The S, again, right, like we need one in both the row and the column, and this is where the row and column intersect. But that's obviously just me being fancy. I don't think that works. I mean, the S doesn't even have to be in the intersection. It could just be that there are two separate S's in the row and column anyways. So... Abyss isn't really much better than Abyss. Oh, I know why there's so many abs words, because abs is a prefix. It somewhat didn't occur to me. Again, it is late. That's why absolute, absolve. Yeah. The thing is, right, if we do want to go with what I suggest with ABS, then this has a good chance of being a vowel, except that it can't be E, I, or O. We should make it absa or absu. Absolute, but I can't come up with anything that absurd. Huh. That's again one that's just one too long. Absurd, 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 absui, absox, absav, absub, absum, absum, absum. Nah. Absaw. Absar. Absat. Absaz. Absamp. Absad. Absav. Absag. Absav. Abzak. ipsay, ipsay, ipsal, ipsay, ipsix, ipsac, ipsav, ipsab, ipsan, ipsam. There are a couple that would work in German.
Likely, yeah.
That would. Actually, I don't know if any of those would technically work. They're just a prefix and a root. I don't think I have any that would actually be full words. But yeah, anyways. Actually, there's at least one that would work, but that's beside the point. English. Abuse.
Oh.
It doesn't
That works.
quite have the S where I would have absolutely preferred it, but it doesn't break any of where the E's can't be. We only have negative information on E's. That's a weird thing about E's.
Yes.
Right, like normally you have positive information on E's.
A lot of positive information on E's. Let's go for it.
Test U, which we haven't tested before. Test S in positions where we like it. Test A in positions where we like it. And test B. Well, I guess it's a base. I don't think a base is a word. A base almost certainly isn't.
Yeah.
I don't quite know what a base means, but I mean, I'm supposing it does make sense. This column needs an S, which if the A is there, it's almost certainly there. Because A, B, S, S, E is not a word. I'm just gonna say that. I'm just gonna pretend that's true.
Pretty certain, yeah.
We also still need a U in that column as well. So it's probably something like usage.
That makes a lot of sense, yes.
And then the first one still actually needs an A and an S, and I was just about to say like accuse, but it doesn't work because we don't have E's.
Skunk?
Skunk is spelled with a K, actually.
It's spelled.
Also doesn't contain an A.
Oh.
So that doesn't work on many levels. SCU feels odd. I think the S is probably
Scuba?
towards the end.
Scuba?
Scuba. Scuba actually works. It does work. See, I was leaning towards the S being towards the end and then the A maybe in the beginning, but that would have also been weird. Scuba works tentatively. It does also solve the other S that we need. It gives an extra B just in case. And the only other piece of positive information that we haven't tried using yet is the N, right? The N in the second row.
Yeah.
Which I guess could be anywhere.
I don't know. I wouldn't put it in like right after the S.
Like in snare, which obviously can't be an R or an E, but
no, I meant in the row where it is.
Oh, right. Sorry.
Yeah. Because assuming the D is correct and the S is definitely correct.
Yeah. I was just gonna say ASN could probably work, but I can't think of anything. But yeah, no, BNS, that's another. I mean, this would be a nice place to put the N, A-N-E. And S-N-A would also work, so,
Yeah.
Oh, it just occurred to me. The second row basically can't contain an E, because there can't be an E here or there. And if we put...
Yes.
And we're not going to put A-E-E, so it basically doesn't contain an E. It doesn't contain an O because we don't have O's. It can't contain an I because it says as much. So the only other vowels that we can use are A and U and I suppose Y. Although I had considered that we could technically put a Y here, but that's a stretch. So there's probably no Y either, just for practical reasons, because Y's tend to be at the end, if there are any. Not a strict rule, but...
Nasal is a word, right?
Nasal.
Nasal. Yeah,
nasal is a word, yes. It pertains to the nose. Because I was just about to say, with only U's and A's to work with as vowels, that does severely limit us, and probably... Because, I mean, it wasn't going to start with double A anyways. It wasn't going to start with UA, probably. So yeah, we basically had this one, between an S and an... possibly an N, would have had to almost guarantee, I mean, between the B and the S, it basically had to be an A or a U.
Yep.
Thing ending in A-son, maybe, but seems like a stretch. Yeah, I mean, no, that's... Or Azan. Yeah, no, this is probably one of the few ones that would actually work. Do we want to try to solve it, or do we want to try to guess something?
I think solving it will be very difficult.
Yes,
although... We don't have any more unused positive information.
Actually, we do.
And...
There's an R. I missed it earlier.
Oh.
Which makes us alert. I'm sorry, I just missed that.
Yeah, I was about to say that. Yeah.
Which almost wanted me to say tiger here, except that neither of those letters work. Oh yeah, also we needed a T still anyway, so in the bottom thing, so putting the T in alert is actually very likely correct. I was gonna say the fourth row almost looks like it's gonna say tiger, except that you can't have a T in this column or an E in this row or column. So rigor. Oh, no R's. No O's. Fucking hell! I came up with two very different solutions for this that don't work at all. But actually, that's a good point, though. Wait, no O's, no E's or I's there. Igor seems like a stretch, so Igar. Cigar. Which makes it a snack, I suppose.
Snack?
Nelt?
Yeah.
Basil?
Yeah, probably.
I thought basil was spelled with an I.
Maybe a different basil? I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. I'm just trying to figure out right now, is there any way for us to do this in 4 guesses? I don't think there is, right? Because... Yeah, no, I think we just have to go with either rows or columns, and it doesn't really matter. Which I guess means we start with basal, because if that's not a word, then that solves it. Yeah, no, it's correct. Alert. What did I say? Snuck? No, snuck. I mean, I could have tried snuck, that wouldn't have mattered. Cabin, which you said very early and is correct. Mm-hmm. And what did I say? Usage. Usage. Hey, that wasn't so hard.
Was that really that quick? That felt really quick.
There was a moment early on where we didn't say anything for a while, but otherwise it was fairly quick.
Mm-hmm.
Scuba, nasal, base, cigar, knelt, snack, cabin, usage, basil, and alert. Obviously define. Basal. It's like nasal, it's basal, but of, relating to, or located at, or forming a base. It's basal. As in relating to bases.
Ah.
It also is also a synonym for basic. Of primary importance, basic.
Yeah.
And again, a lot of like physical
probably
bases.
would only use basic.
And yes, basil with an I is an herb, which is what I was thinking of. Which is, honestly, I kid you not, something that I thought of almost immediately when I saw BAS. And I was like, kind of an I there. I thought of basil almost right away. But basil with an I. They're almost harder when you don't know one of the words. Man. I thought of rigor and tiger, but it ended up being cigar.
It's very different.
Yeah, I mean, it's those two letters that we had to guess, right? And there's only like 5 vowels. So it wasn't going to be a Y. I mean, I guess...
Also, I think rigor is spelled with 2 G's anyway.
What, rigor?
Yeah. Like R-I-G-G-E-R?
R-I-G-O-R. As in rigorous.
Oh, rigor. Yeah.
Not someone who rigs. Oh, which I guess is a job on a ship? A rigger?
Probably.
Rigging the sails? That sounds like a thing. I don't think a fixer... Like, if you fix games, I don't think you're a rigger. I think you're just a cheat. Well...
Yeah.
No, rigor as in rigorous. Or as in rigor mortis, which I guess probably has the same Latin origin. What did you think... Oh, sorry. Our second topic is good questions to ask from conversationsworld.com. Starting with number 108. What did you think was going to be amazing, but turned out to be horrible? Supposedly that way around for me. Which I guess means I'm a pessimist, which is weird, because I don't think of myself as a pessimist. I guess most people think of themselves as realists, though. Horrible. I mean, that's a very strong word as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been frequently underwhelmed.
Like, yes. There's been stuff where it turned out to be underwhelming from what I expected.
Yeah. I mean, I thought the Starbeast was a pretty average Russell T. Davies episode, which I guess isn't a bad thing, but with his return as a showrunner of Doctor Who, I was kind of having very high expectations, and I was disappointed by it. It wasn't terrible. It was perfectly good, but it just wasn't amazingly great. Now, The Wild Beyond Yonder, that one's amazing.
Yes, like Cyberpunk 2077. I also wouldn't say horrible, but it was quite underwhelming.
My understanding is that it was also
released.
Basically unplayable when it launched.
I could run it perfectly fine. Like that seems like a you problem.
I mean,
To be fair, I
I
also
don't.
had one of the most like
Yeah,
performant graphics cards at
I
the
never
time.
played it, and also I don't think it was just performance, although I think there was some performance issues as well. But also, I think it was also very buggy.
There were
Um,
bugs, quite a lot of them.
but I can't think of anything that I thought was going to be amazing and turned out to be horrible.
Hmm?
That's a very strong switch. I guess my expectations are reasonable enough that it doesn't happen. I mean,
Probably.
I feel like the only experience that feels like it relates to the question is that I remember, especially when I was younger, sometimes not wanting to go to things and then enjoy myself anyways. Which is the exact
Yes.
opposite.
Yeah.
But I feel like even that hasn't happened that much to me recently. But I guess that's a lot of times also because if I don't want to go somewhere, just don't go. Um, that's the perks of being an adult. um,
Agency.
yeah. What
Yeah.
bit of trivia do you know that is very interesting but also very useless? Most facts of the week that we had.
A lot of them.
I mean, some are probably not interesting,
Do you have
and
like
there are maybe even a couple that were useful.
do you have like a favorite one?
Um, not right off hand, but maybe one that was definitely interesting and useless was the one about the manhole cover that you once had.
Yes.
Apparently,
I was about to mention that as my favorite fact of the week.
I've seen a claim recently. I don't know if you mentioned that it actually was fast enough apparently to have enough escape velocity for our entire solar system or even galaxy or something like that. It was wild. Now it probably burned up in the atmosphere,
I
maybe.
mean, I would expect
But
that.
also, yeah, it was going really fast.
I mean, it's going like almost as fast as like the Voyager spacecraft. So like, I would think they have enough.
Yeah.
It has enough escape velocity.
Now, I've also read that apparently someone hypothesized that it didn't burn up in the atmosphere, but also I've seen other people claim that it probably would. So I don't know if it's actually hurling out there. But
I don't know.
What's the silliest thing you've seen someone get upset about? I mean, I feel like if you're on the internet, that's kind of easy one. I guess the superlative makes everything hard as a question, but probably representation in media. Like, I feel like you sometimes see people like trash an entire TV show or something because the main character's black or something. It's like, or especially if the characters are gay or trans. It's
yeah.
It's like, it's all propaganda. They're like trying to trans our children. It's like, for fuck's sake. And some people get really upset.
If you hadn't brought that up, like I wouldn't even have thought of like this kind of people that just get upset about something existing.
Yeah, but like,
because I just like filter that out by default.
Because
like, I just don't notice that.
People get upset about, like, especially on the internet, people get upset about everything and anything. Oh, also, anti-maskers. Yeah. Whenever, like, they had to wear masks. Like, there have been so many videos of, like, people throwing tantrums when they had to wear a mask in some store. Actually, even sillier, some of them have thrown tantrums because other people in the store were wearing masks. I've seen videos of people throwing tantrums because other people were wearing masks. But like, even if you think they don't work, like, it doesn't change your life. Interesting example of that, actually.
So wild.
I remember seeing a video where a woman was complaining she had to wear a mask in a store. And one of the reasons she said why it's stupid that she had to wear one is because there was no one else there. Which reveals a lot, because that means that she didn't think of the people working there as people.
Yep.
There were no other customers there, but there was still someone working at the counter. So, yeah. You know, I guess probably primarily anti-maskers and transphobes. Those are probably the ones that tend to get upset about the silliest things. What animal or plant do you think should be renamed?
Eggplant.
Pineapple. Come on, eggplant is a plant that looks like an egg. That makes perfect sense.
But only like in one stage of its growth.
Yes, and not the one that people are most commonly associating with it. Now, to be fair, it's also called an aubergine. So,
yes,
it has another name.
Like that is a name I can get behind. So English, please adjust.
No, in Britain they call it an aubergine. That's like an American thing, specifically.
Okay. Then American English, please.
Did I already say pineapple? I wanted to say pineapple.
Yes, you did.
I mean, I think it was Alex who made the point before, right? Where, I mean, he probably did come up with it originally himself, but like, it's not an apple. It doesn't grow on pines. Yeah. And there's probably other examples. I do sort of think about animals that, or I mean plants too sometimes, where it suggests that it's in a category that it isn't. I'm also not that upset about strawberries anymore, but strawberries are not berries, right? Now, colloquially, that probably works, but there are other examples like that where something has something in its name that would suggest that it belongs to like a completely different group than it actually does. Usually because of superficial because of superficial similarities, rather than any actual like taxonomical relationship. Oh, there's actually an interesting thing as well where scientific names of animals don't get changed, like basically ever, unless it gets reclassified.
Yeah.
And it belongs to a different branch now, but like the actual like name of the species itself doesn't really get changed. And so there are a couple of animals that actually have the name that in taxonomy have the name of another animal in like the real world, which is a really weird phenomenon.
I didn't know that.
Yes. So that probably would also prompt itself to like should be renamed. But yeah, it's probably pineapple. I think pineapple's a good call. What was the best thing that happened to you today? How literal do we want to take this question? This podcast.
So we have started recording at
like 12:30, 12:40, like somewhere around there.
Yeah, 12:40 a.m., not p.m. a.m.
I hate that, by the way. Like, it's 12:40 after midnight. I mean, yes, it is 12:40 and it's after midnight. I get that. Like, that's the explanation that Americans will give you, right? It's 12:40 and it's after midnight. But it's not 12 hours and 40 minutes after midnight, which is what it would suggest.
Yep.
There's two possible fixes. Switch AM and PM around for everything that starts with a 12, or replace the 12 with a 0. If it was 0:40 AM, perfectly fine.
I would go with the zeros. That seems less confusing.
Third idea. Just switch to a 24-hour system. It's so much simpler.
Yeah. It is.
Like, I know Americans would say, no, it's actually more complicated because you have to count past 12 and that's difficult or something. But the fact of the matter is, it's the same amount of digits to 24 as it is to 12. And you don't have to have the little AM/PM indicator afterwards. Which shortens, especially in writing. Like, if you have like an alarm clock or something, it'll usually just have like a small AM/PM indicator, but it's just unnecessarily complicated.
It is. And also, can you do like first or second grade math, or can you not? Like, really?
I mean, the only thing that is arguably weird in the 24-hour format is like traditional mechanical clocks. Actually, they don't have to be mechanical, but you know what I mean. Analog clocks.
Yep.
Because they are 12 hours, So then you do actually have to do the math. And sometimes some languages that use a 24-hour
I
system...
have one right here.
Yeah. Will still colloquially use the 12-hour system, right? So like in colloquial German, you could easily say it's like 3 in the afternoon, which means obviously 15 o'clock technically. But oftentimes you don't really say that in casual conversation, which is another thing that complicates it in practice, but in theory it's a much simpler system. And in practice you just have to occasionally be able to calculate plus minus 12. Which really isn't that hard. If we go today as in since I woke up, what's the best thing that happened to me? And I guess also you, because we're both being asked the question.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I don't think a lot of has happened to me. It seems like a very passive thing. I mean, I watched some mediocre.
I guess I ate some like tasty. Yeah, I guess I ate some tasty pastries. That was pretty good.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, first of all, happened to you implies that you didn't have an active part in it, which already means nothing, because I don't think anything happened to me today in that sense. And even if we do say what's the best thing you did today, it's like I didn't really do much today, so yeah. Let's do one more and then call it a day. As a child, what did you think would be awesome about being an adult, but isn't as awesome as you thought it would be? That's a mouthful. I mean, just being an adult, right? Like, just in general. Not as awesome as you thought it would be. I don't know, is there anything specific?
Yep.
I feel like the problem with childhood expectations of adulthood are not that any one thing is actually worse than you thought, but rather that you only think about the good things. And you don't really think about the bad things. Right?
I mean, conversely, also like thinking back how awesome it was being a child, you also only really think about the good stuff.
Granted. I think in a lot of ways childhood was better though, but also a lot of that is the whole like happy pig thing, right? Where the innocence of childhood, right? Where you just don't know. I mean, obviously you have more free time and stuff like that. Stuff's just objectively better, but it's also just that you don't know as much about the world. So the world just seems like a lot of a nicer place than it actually is.
I don't know.
Sergej still doesn't watch the news.
Yep. Intentionally, but like your mental health improves a lot by not watching the news.
That's probably true. I am probably
and
still
highly
better
recommend.
off than
Especially
most
if you're not in a position to change anything about it.
Yeah.
It's like, why bother?
Honestly,
why make your mental health worse?
That's not as much of a problem for me. I think my mental health is better than most people's, probably. Or at least a lot of people on the internet, because I don't really do social media, which is already like a huge thing.
Yeah.
And I feel like I can engage with the news more like a curiosity. Like, I'm actually fairly up to date on world events, but it doesn't really tear me up all that much, because it's like, I mean, yeah, it all sucks, but I can't do anything about it. So, I'm fairly good about not caring about things that I can't change. So, it's not that important to me, but it is. I find it interesting, and I find it good to know what's going on. But again, right, like, because I can disconnect from it, it also helps.
Yep. And I guess, like, also, if you cannot, like, ignore that kind of stuff, instead of, like, just sitting at home or, like, talking to your friends or family about it, I don't know, go organize a protest or something. Actually, like, do something to change it.
You just went from, I can't change it anyways, to, how about you just change it really quickly?
I mean, you can work towards it. Doesn't mean you will actually succeed. We can attempt it. It might work, might not, probably won't.
Yeah.
I mean, I participated in a protest once. One of the biggest ones in like the last few decades. Didn't change a thing.
Don't you just love that?
Yep.
Yeah. Protests tend to not change all that much oftentimes. I'm not saying they're useless, but oftentimes the whole like activism stuff isn't nearly as effective as actually like. Honestly, a lot of activists should just try to get into politics. Because you can do a lot more in politics than you can do as an activist.
Yeah.
Like, actual power is useful. Like, it's kind of funny because a lot of activists obviously don't like the system, which is like a big part, but like, believe it or not, it is easier to change the system from the inside.
Yeah.
I mean,
I guess it's true. Yeah.
It is just like objectively true because as an activist, your whole thing is to try to convince lawmakers to change things. Often, I mean, it depends on what you're exactly protesting about, but like oftentimes it's about trying to pressure lawmakers to change laws. And if you're a lawmaker, you could be a part of changing that law. I mean, obviously, if you're sitting in like a 500-person legislative chamber, you're still just one voice among many, but being one among 500 is a lot better than being one among like 100 million or something.
Yep.
I maybe went a bit big there.
Yeah.
I mean,
slightly.
I was trying to go for like order of magnitude, right? And it's like, oh yeah, Germany, like 85 million, the US, 320 million or something. A little bit more probably at this point. So I was like, like big countries. But I was like, oh yeah, the US is a really big country. It's like the third most populous country in the world. And Germany is like also in the top 20 or so.
Red Bay.
Somewhere in the back of my mind it says 22, which means not in the top 20, but now we want to know if that's true. Let's see. Let's check meters.info. Let's just see what the population count is. Population by country, and then I'm going to
on 19.
Population by country.
Yeah,
Germany's 19th. And we definitely were 19th for a while. There's no way that we just overtook Thailand, who have a population of like under 72. Wait, it says Germany 83 million? That doesn't right. 2023. I'm pretty sure. Oh, wait. Yearly change minus 0.09, okay. Population shrinking. I could have sworn we were at 84 and even hit 85 at one point.
Could be.
What's happening? Like, just with why are my numbers so wrong? Maybe I was... Yeah, Wikipedia has a Q2 estimate of 84.5. They also have Germany at 18 with 84.5 as the most recent data point. And Iran just below, which Worldometers has Iran ahead of Turkey. The Turkey numbers are very similar. The Iran numbers are very, very different. Although, oh yeah, the Wikipedia Iran numbers also from 2020. Huh. Well, anyways, it's kind of all that does numbers so far. It doesn't matter. I said I was going to end the topic. We're doing songs now. We're doing songs this week. Sergej, what's your song of the week?
My song of the week is Power of the Saber Blade by Dragon Force.
So, do I understand correctly that they made it specifically for Beat Saber?
Yes.
Okay, that's cool.
That released like a couple days ago. I didn't know they did such things, like specifically for video games, rhythm games as well.
I mean,
just songs.
Dragon Force and Beat Saber seem like a natural fit.
Yeah.
Because
I mean, Dragon Force in like any rhythm game
yes.
seems like a natural fit.
My whole point is Dragon Force
this is by yeah, and this is by far the fastest song in the base game.
Huh.
And
yeah, not surprising.
Oh boy, like I don't think any casual player can even pass this on the highest difficulty.
And let me guess, for competitive play, it's still way too easy.
No. Like I would actually struggle on this quite a bit.
So what you're saying is you can actually play decent
for reference,
music in Beat Saber as well.
Yeah. Like for reference, I was once in the top 800 worldwide in Beat Saber. I have now fallen quite a bit further down since I haven't played as much. But yeah, good luck to anyone attempting this. It's not easy. What is your song of the week?
Well, my song of the week is Short Change Hero by The Heavy.
Can you send me a link to that later?
Certainly. If memory serves, this was once the theme song, well, I suppose it still is, of one of the Borderlands games. I want to say Borderlands 2, maybe? I think this and What Makes You Good Man have both been theme songs for different Borderlands games. And they also made... The Heavy actually also made a song for Borderlands 3 specifically as a theme song. Because The Heavy had also already been the artist for, like, I think Borderlands 2 and the pre-sequel. And then they specifically, I guess I commissioned them to specifically make a theme song for Borderlands 3, rather than using one of their existing songs. Not really the point of this, but, like, this... I mean, that's, I think, why I know them. Because of Borderlands. And also, especially Short Change Hero and What Makes You Good Man, really good songs as well. So, yeah. That's probably all that I have to say about this one. Oh, both of our songs of the week were because we like video games. We got both of our songs of the week from video games.
Yeah, true.
I mean, that's a rare thing, right? Because I don't really have a lot of songs that I got from video games. Like 4, I guess.
I actually have a lot of them.
Yeah, because Beat Saber is about music.
Video games.
Yeah. I don't really play games about music that much, right? So, like, the music is usually incidental. Incidental as in it's... Wait, that shit works in both ways, doesn't it? Incidental as in it's there as a secondary thing, but also incidental music is a thing, right? Because that... It's more of a TV thing than I should really stop going on tangents in my head that just kind of peter out. Yeah, that was my song of the week, and I really like it, and that's why it's my song of the week. Which brings us over the Thrash Talk podcast to a close. If you enjoyed it, leave a like. If you want to see more like this, and you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. If you have something to say, leave a comment or join us somewhere. Link is in the description below. So, okay.
That's it.
That's it.